Look at you, so beautiful, my dearest. Look at you, so beautiful. Look at your eyes, sweet as doves, behind the veil that your hair makes as it cascades from your head like a flock of young goats, black ones bounding down off Mount Gilead. And your teeth are sheep, white as the day they were born, were newly shorn and freshly washed, each with its perfect mate. Not one of them is alone. Why should we be? And the lips of that lovely mouth, a ribbon of scarlet. Your temples behind that veil glow like the halves of a freshly sliced pomegranate. Your neck has the grace of David's tower, with its jewels hung round it like the shields of 1,000 warriors. And your breasts, like the twin fawns of a gazelle hiding among the lilies. All my nights, till the sun comes chasing its shadows, let me play in these perfumed hills, these mountains scented with myrrh. You are utterly beautiful, my dearest. Not a single flaw in you.
My hometown newspaper, it's a small town paper and came out I think once or twice a week. And I remember growing up, it was small town news. It was sort of things you'd expect, local sports, local happenings. It was always a big deal if I'd see my picture in the paper. There was my Cub Scout troop or whatever it was. And so whenever it would come in the mail, we'd read it, look through it. And one of the sections that's always in there is the wedding and engagement announcements. And usually what would happen was, beyond the names of the couple, there was a nice photo, a professional photo of the couple, and a description of the couple and families. The bride is the daughter of so-and-so and the granddaughter of these folks. And if it was for the wedding and not the engagement, there was a description of the ceremony, where it took place and who was the pastor and the best man and the maid of honor and all of that stuff, just kind of and where the reception was, things like that. And usually in there, in the description of the couple and all of that, there was a listing of accomplishments for the couple. And, it'll say the bride is a graduate of this and this in place and employed by this person and received this award and all of these kind of things. And so, you get not only just a description of the wedding and the couple, but kind of a little background on who this couple was. And I would read them, especially as I got older. As I got older, then I knew the folks there, and sometimes after I was out of high school, then I'd say, oh yeah, I remember that person from my algebra class or whatever it was. But I would read them, and I would read those accomplishments, and I would say, well, what has this person done with his or her life, and kind of scan the accomplishments. Now I realize a lot of that was a little bit of small town nosiness and narcissism, a little bit like, well, what are they doing? And a little bit of look at me. And that's, that's human nature there, I think. But I thought, it's interesting. Here are these people who are joining their lives together in love and commitment. And people like me are sometimes scanning through and saying, well, what's impressive about this person's life? But for the people getting married, they're not saying, well, honey, I love you so much. I love you for your high grade point average from that impressive school, and I love that you've achieved this important job and all these impressive achievements that you've racked up. No, they're saying, I love you for who you are. I think you're a lovely, delightful person, and I want to be around you, and I want to join with life with you. Do you see the difference? Do you see how maybe we're looking at different perspectives? That, on one hand, I'm kind of looking through and say, well, what have they done from their lives? But for the couple, hopefully, that they're joined together and saying, I love you for who you are. I used to think, there was a part of me that thought, life was about how many accomplishments I could get. Basically, what I was thinking was, how could I stack my obituary? When my life is all said and done, and they said, well, this person's done this and this, what would be there? How could I stack that up? And partly, I realized there was encouragement from my family to try to do good things, to use the gifts and the opportunities given to me, and nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with wanting to do good things with what you're given in your life, and that's a positive thing. But there was a part of me that thought that maybe life is just a matter of what I could achieve. That my value is in what I could achieve. And I wonder, I've got to think that God sees us differently. Our scripture reading today is from the Song of Songs. And you don't hear many sermons from the Song of Songs, do you? I mean, if you read through there, pastors sometimes will get a little nervous around there. And I remember as a middle school boy in church that my friends and I, we discovered the Song of Songs in the Bible, and my friends and I were snickering at it. And if you've read through it, you know what I'm talking about. It gets a little R-rated at times, and if you've never read through the Song of Songs, and in some Bibles it's called the Song of Solomon, but basically what it is it's love poems. A man and a woman are writing back and forth to one another. And I think sometimes people are surprised that it's in the Bible. I had an art teacher in Northwest Indiana that I went to his classes, and then he was a working artist, and he was wanting to gather some people to help him work on this bigger art project. And so I kind of worked as an assistant with him for a little while. And while we were working on that, there was a group of people usually that were working on it. We had lots of time to talk. And they were always curious about my life as a pastor. And I was, one day we were talking about things in the Bible, and I was explaining to them the Song of Songs to them. And these were not churchy people. Some of them may have had a church background earlier in life, but, they were not regulars at a church service. And they were surprised. They had no idea that this was in the Bible. And I told them, I said, probably a lot of Christians have no idea it's in the Bible as well. So if you've never read it, I encourage you this afternoon, even just a chapter, spend a little time in the Song of Songs. There's all of this delightful love poetry there. Our reading today, it's the man is writing to the woman, and he says, look at you, so beautiful, my dearest. Look at you, so beautiful. Your eyes are doves beyond the veil of your hair. Now, some of it gets kind of you can tell it comes from the Middle East in a certain time, and so it's the images used are maybe not the images we would use, but you get the sense of it. It says your hair is like a flock of goats as they stream down Mount Gilead. Your teeth are newly shorn ewes as they come up from the washing pool. All of them perfectly matched. Not one of them lacks its twin. Like a crimson ribbon are your lips. When you smile, it is lovely. And our reading ends with saying, you are utterly beautiful, my dearest. There's not a single flaw in you. You read this and you tell that this is someone who's just captivated by his beloved. Someone loving his beloved just for who she is, just delighting in who she is and his love for her. I love that this is in the Bible. I mean, we forget this, here right in the midst of our sacred scriptures, this delight in our loving and our beloved and our belovedness. Now, this sermon series where we've been in here for the last few weeks, it's asking us to reflect upon who God is in light of the beauty of the world and the beauty of creation. What can we learn from God about the created world? And what it's calling us to reflect upon, I believe, is that God could have made the world simple or boring or not very attractive. Sort of like if you've ever experienced an ugly institutional building, the kind of, no windows. You can tell that there's just not a lot of thought put into the building about how attractive it is or what it would be like to be in that building. It's just kind of an ugly institutional building. The kind of place where people are glad when it's knocked down, where no one is sad that the building is going away. God could have made the world that way. Just, not very attractive, very simple, but that's not the world that we inhabit, is it? I mean, our natural world, our created world, is diverse. It's beautiful. It's extraordinary. One summer I was in college. I worked at a growing facility for a greenhouse and a nursery. And so it was a place where they grew the plants, not necessarily where they sold the plants, but where they grew them, and then they got shipped to their own nursery. And they supplied plants for a lot of different places. And I worked mostly with aquatic plants, and I learned a lot in that summer. I didn't know a thing about aquatic plants going into that summer, and so I learned a lot. It was a wonderful experience. And some of the ponds that we had aquatic plants going into, they were far away from the kind of the main center of our work, and sometimes I'd have to go out there. And I remember my first time I was sent out there alone. There was a snake that they had named the snake even, and there was the snake, this big bull snake, and I think he was as afraid of me as I was of him. But I remember on the way there, there was a lotus plant. I remember seeing it. Now we sold a lot of water lilies, but someone had planted a lotus plant out there as well, and I could see it growing, and as I go past it day by day, and then eventually, finally, it bloomed. Now, I remember driving out there, and I had this little motorized cart to cart things back and forth, and seeing that lotus flower and bloom. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up, type into your computer, your phone, whatever, lotus flower later today, and you can see what I'm talking about. And I remember just seeing that flower day after day, and I was in awe of it. It was just so amazingly beautiful. And to think that creation is made with such beauty. And here's the thing, the part that I think we sometimes skip as Christians. You're a part of God's created world too. I'm a part of God's created world. You are a creation of God. We are made in the image of God. And that beauty that when we're amazed by it, with whatever it is, whether it's like a lotus flower, or you're looking up at the night sky, or whatever it was, that beauty that those things have, you have them too. You are worthy just as you are. That God made beauty not with any sense of utilitarian purpose to it, but just because it is. And I believe we get so wrapped up in society's definition of beauty, what we think a beautiful person is, and none of us measure up to that. No human being really ever measures up to that. All of us have our imperfections and our flaws. But think of it like this way. Do you have a picture of a loved one? And that picture, it captures everything that's good about that person. It's a good picture, the lighting's good, the focus is good, all of that. But you look at that picture, and that picture seems to just capture the essence of that person. You look at that picture and you say, yes, that's my loved one. That's who my loved one is. And you love that person whenever you see that picture. With a little guy in our household, we've got several like that. And you look at that picture and you can't help but love him. You can't help but fall in love with him. My guess is you probably have a picture or two like that. And my guess is you probably have framed that picture. You put it up somewhere where you cherish it. You put it up on the desktop of your computer, whatever it is, where you can see it again and again. And whenever you see that picture, you're thankful for that person. That a picture allows you to see the belovedness of that person, just for who that person is. And that picture probably has nothing to do with that person's accomplishments or society's definitions of beauty, or, you see the belovedness of that person. You see that person for the lotus flower that he or she is. Do you think, here's the good news, do you think that God looks on all of us that way? It sees us for our belovedness. As we read the Song of Songs, the Christians and people of God, they have read the Song of Songs in a couple of ways. One is they see it for what it is, which is a love song between two people who love and delight in one another. But they've also, with people of faith, as we have read this, we have also heard on another level God's delight in our belovedness, and seeing God's delight in us as God's beloved creatures in as we read it. I believe that belovedness, how God cherishes each and every one of us, how God has that perfect picture of each and every one of us, that has nothing to do with your resume, or if you got back to your weight you were in high school, or how impressive the achievements of your life are. And those things are fine for whatever they are. But our belovedness does not have a thing to do with any of that. I believe we are beloved just because we are made in the image of God. We are beloved by God, just as we are. And people of God, that's you. That's you. That's you. That's me. That's all of us. You are beloved just as you are by God. Isn't that what Jesus tries to tell us? He says, look at the lilies of the field. Look at how beautiful they are. They don't sow or spend, and if God clothes the grass of the field like that, what doesn't God love and care about you? You are beloved. You are worthy of God. Just as you are. You are a beautiful creation of God. Amen.